Have you ever done something small, something so simple it barely took a second, and then discovered it was the moment that changed your entire life? Kindness is strange like that. It leaves your hands quietly and returns in ways you never expect. It was a slow Tuesday evening at Mary's Diner, a little restaurant tucked between an old laundromat and a barbershop that had been opening soon for 6 years. The neon sign flickered. The coffee was always burnt. The booths squeaked. But the place had heart, the kind that only exists in small towns where everyone knows everyone. Before we continue, if you love stories that warm your heart and awaken emotions that help you to become a better person, be sure to subscribe to this channel and show your love by liking the video. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. Emily Carter, 26, had been working there for 3 years. Bright smile, tired eyes. Bills stacked like bricks in her purse. Dreams shoved aside to make room for rent. But she was good at her job. Too good, her co-workers often joked, because she cared too much. That night, as Emily wiped down table 12, she noticed an elderly man sitting alone in a corner booth. He had snow-white hair, shaky hands, and a coat that looked older than she was. His eyes were gentle but sad, like someone who had spent far too many nights eating alone. He ordered only soup and a slice of bread. Emily smiled softly. "Cold night, huh?" He nodded. "Colder than most." There was something fragile in his voice, something that made Emily slow down, pay attention. When he finished eating, he reached into his coat pocket. Then his face changed. He patted the other pocket, then his jeans, then his coat again. His hands trembled. I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I must have forgotten my wallet. I don't know how—" Emily's heart clenched. "It's okay," she said gently. No, I can come back tomorrow, miss, I promise. I'm not a thief." "I know," Emily said softly. "It's okay, really." She placed a hand on his, warm, reassuring, the kind of touch that says, "You're safe." "I'll cover it," she said. Tears gathered in the man's eyes. "No one has been kind to me in a long time." Emily blinked, taken aback. "Everyone deserves kindness." He swallowed hard. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emily." "Emily." His voice crumbled. "You remind me of someone I lost a long time ago." She offered him a soft smile. "Just get home safe, okay?" He nodded, eyes shining, and left the diner slowly, leaning on a worn wooden cane. Emily didn't think about it again. She didn't know his name. She didn't ask for anything in return. It was a small act, a moment of kindness, or so she thought. But the next morning when she arrived for her shift, a man in a suit was waiting at the entrance. "Emily Carter?" he asked. "Yes." He handed her an envelope and a bronze key. "This," he said, "is from the man whose bill you paid last night, and his message is very simple. Thank you for saving me." Emily stared at the key in her palm as if it were a live wire, old, bronze, heavy. Not the kind of key you used for a house, the kind you used for something older, something important. "Sorry," she said, blinking at the lawyer. "What is this?" The man, tall, sharply dressed, carrying an air of quiet seriousness, adjusted his glasses. "My name is Daniel Reed," he said. "I'm the representative of Mr. Arthur Bennett." Emily frowned. "Who?" "The elderly gentleman you helped last night." Her heart jolted. "That's his name." Daniel nodded. "Yes." Emily shook her head softly, embarrassed. "He didn't have to do anything like this. I wasn't expecting—" Daniel raised a hand. "I know you weren't. That's precisely why he left this for you." He handed her the envelope. Emily glanced at the clock inside the diner, 5 minutes before her shift started. Then, at the lawyer standing between her and everything she thought she understood. She tore the envelope open. Inside was a single sheet of thick paper, just one line written in shaky handwriting. "Your kindness last night saved me. This key belongs to you now, Arthur." Emily blinked. What does that mean? Saved him? How? Daniel exhaled slowly, as if deciding how much to say. "Miss Carter, Arthur Bennett hasn't accepted help from anyone in years. He lived alone. No family, no friends left. I believe last night was the first human kindness he received in a very long time." Emily's chest tightened. "But it was just soup and bread. I didn't do anything special." Daniel looked at her with a gentleness that caught her off guard. "You did something rare," he said. "You saw him." Silence washed over them. Emily looked again at the key, its cold edges pressing into her skin. "But what does it open?" Daniel hesitated. "That," he said, "is something Mr. Bennett wanted you to find on your own." She stared at him, unsettled. "Is he okay? Is he all right?" Daniel's expression shifted, slightly, painfully. "He is safe," he said quietly. "That's all I'm allowed to tell you right now." Emily's stomach dropped. Why did that sound like a lie wrapped in politeness? Daniel stepped back. "When you're ready, go to the address inside the second envelope." Emily looked down. She hadn't even noticed the second envelope tucked behind the first. "It will all make sense," Daniel said. "But prepare yourself. It might not be what you expect." He gave her a small bow, formal, reverent, and walked away before she could speak another word. Emily stood frozen on the sidewalk, the key warm now from her grasp, her heart pounding in her ears. She opened the second envelope with trembling hands. Inside, written in precise handwriting, was an address: Bennett Orchard, Old Mill Road, Parcel 17. Emily's breath caught. Everyone in town knew that place. It had belonged to one of the richest families the county had ever seen, and it had been abandoned for nearly 20 years. She looked again at the key, suddenly heavier. "What did I save him from?" she whispered. "And why would a lonely, fragile man give her the key to a place worth millions?" The road to Old Mill felt longer than usual, though Emily had driven it countless times as a kid. The farther she went, the fewer houses she passed. The town's chatter faded behind her, replaced by quiet fields and the whisper of trees bending under the morning breeze. Her fingers kept brushing against the bronze key in her pocket. Cool, heavy, uncomfortably important. Bennett Orchard. Even the name felt unreal. Everyone in town remembered it. Acres of apple trees, a farmhouse built by hand, a place once filled with laughter and the smell of warm cider. But after the Bennett family's tragedy, a fire, a bankruptcy rumor, and then Arthur disappearing from public life, the orchard had been left to rot. No one had bought it, no one had touched it. It was cursed, people said, or abandoned, or both. Emily parked at the old wooden gate, which stood crooked, half-eaten by time. A metal sign hung from rusted chains. Private property, no entry. She swallowed. "This is insane," she whispered to herself, but she pushed the gate open anyway. It groaned like something waking from a long sleep. Emily followed the gravel path, boots crunching softly. Apple trees stretched endlessly on both sides. Branches twisted, fruit long gone, leaves trembling like ghosts of their former beauty. As she walked deeper, she noticed something strange. The air felt warm, alive, not abandoned at all, almost as if the orchard had been waiting. At the end of the path stood the farmhouse, 2 stories, white paint peeling, wide porch sagging, a place forgotten by everyone, except one. Emily approached cautiously, the key warm now against her trembling fingers. She reached the front door, touched the faded wood, and felt a pang of sadness she couldn't explain. "This can't be for me," she whispered. She slid the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. The door opened with a soft sigh, as if relieved. Inside, dust motes floated in sunbeams, furniture draped in white sheets, old photographs on the mantel, frozen memories of a family long gone. Emily stepped deeper into the living room, heart pounding. She didn't understand. Why her? Why this place? Why the key? A creak echoed from upstairs. Emily froze. "Hello?" she whispered. No answer. She took one hesitant step toward the staircase. Buzz. Her phone vibrated in her hand. Unknown number. Emily answered shakily. Hello?" A calm, familiar voice replied, "Ms. Carter, this is Daniel Reed. We need to talk. There's something I didn't tell you. Something about Mr. Bennett." Emily's breath caught. "What is it?" Daniel hesitated. Then, quietly, "Arthur Bennett was planning to end his life last night. Your kindness stopped him. That's why you received the key." Emily gripped the banister, knees weakening. "And now," Daniel continued, voice heavy, "you deserve to know the rest." Emily's hand tightened around the phone until her knuckles turned white. The quiet of the old farmhouse seemed to close in around her, the dust, the silence, the untouched memories. What do you mean he was planning to—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Daniel Reed exhaled on the other end, a weary sound. "Arthur Bennett had been struggling for a long time, Ms. Carter. Decades, if I'm honest." Emily swallowed hard, sinking slowly onto an old armchair covered by a sheet. "But why? Why would he—" "Loneliness," Daniel said simply. "The Bennett family lost everything, their fortune, their home, their peace, after a series of tragedies. Arthur never recovered. He carried that grief for years, alone." Emily blinked back tears. She had seen loneliness before, but not like this, not this deep. Daniel continued, "He came into the diner last night, expecting it to be his final meal. He had arranged his affairs. He had left the instructions. And then—" Emily closed her eyes. "And then I paid for his soup." "No," Daniel said gently. "You did more than that." Silence stretched between them. Emily opened her eyes, staring at the beams of light slicing through the dust. "What did I do?" she whispered. "You made him feel seen," Daniel said. "You reminded him that kindness still existed, that strangers could still care, that the world wasn't finished with him yet." Emily pressed a hand to her chest, breath trembling. I had no idea." "You weren't supposed to," Daniel replied softly. "That's why it mattered." Emily forced herself to stand and walked toward the old fireplace. She lifted a sheet off a framed photograph. A younger Arthur stood with a woman and 2 children beneath the very apple trees outside. They looked full of life. Nothing like the trembling, lonely man she'd seen last night. "It all fell apart," Emily whispered. "Yes," Daniel said, "and he lived with the ruins for years." Emily turned toward the staircase, imagining footsteps, memories, ghosts. "So this key, this house, why give it to me?" Daniel paused before answering. "Because in Arthur's mind, you gave him back something he lost the moment his family died." Emily's throat tightened. "What?" "Hope." Tears pricked her eyes. Daniel continued, "There's one more thing. Arthur wrote a letter for you. It's inside the study, right drawer of the desk." Emily glanced down the hallway. The study door was half open, shadow spilling out like a secret waiting to be uncovered. "Why me?" she whispered again. Daniel's voice softened. Arthur believed that the person who saved him deserved something more than a thank you. He believed kindness should return in equal measure. Emily hesitated. Is he okay now?" A long silence. Finally, "He's alive," Daniel said, "but he asked me to let you discover the rest yourself." The line clicked dead. Emily stood alone in the silent house, the bronze key still warm in her pocket, the weight of an entire life pressing in the air around her. and with trembling steps, she turned toward the study. The hallway leading to the study felt like a tunnel through time. Old floorboards groaned under Emily's steps, as if warning her to turn back. Dust spiraled in thin columns of sunlight. Every photograph on the wall watched her with ghosts of the past. The study door stood slightly ajar. Emily pushed it gently. The room smelled of old books, cedar, and something faintly sweet. Apples, maybe. Papers were stacked neatly on the desk, as though Arthur had lived here yesterday instead of decades ago. Her heart thudded as she approached the desk. Just as Daniel had said, the right drawer held a sealed envelope. Her name was written on the front in shaky but careful handwriting. To Emily Carter, the girl who reminded me I was still human. Emily's breath broke in her chest. She sat down slowly, the old chair creaking beneath her, and opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a handwritten letter. She unfolded it. Arthur's voice seemed to rise from the ink. Emily, you don't know me. You don't know what I have lost. But last night, when you held my hand and told me everyone deserves kindness, you gave me something I haven't felt in years. You gave me warmth. I came to that diner for my last meal, not because I wanted to die, but because I no longer knew how to live. My family's gone. My home has been empty. My orchard, once full of life, has grown silent. I believed the world no longer had a place for me. But then you looked at me like I was still a person, not a burden. Not a ghost, a person. And in that moment, I decided to stay one more day. This orchard has been without a caretaker for too long. So has my heart. I leave it to you not as a debt repaid, but as a gift of gratitude. A life is not saved with grand gestures. It is saved with quiet kindness. This home is yours now, if you choose it. He had signed it simply, Arthur Bennett. The old man who didn't want to leave the world without saying thank you. By the time Emily finished reading, her cheeks were wet. She pressed the letter to her chest, overwhelmed. A stranger, a man broken by life, had given her the greatest gift she had ever received, a second chance, a home, a beginning. She stood, feeling the weight of the orchard around her, and something new inside her. Purpose. Suddenly, a floorboard groaned behind her. Emily spun around. At the doorway stood Daniel Reed, with a look on his face she didn't understand. "Emily," he said quietly, "there's something more you need to know about Arthur's past." His eyes softened, almost apologetically. "He didn't just choose you because of kindness. He chose you because of who you are." Emily stared at Daniel from across the study, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it echoing between the dusty walls. The letter still trembled in her hands. Arthur's words, his gratitude, his pain. But Daniel's expression carried something heavier, something she wasn't prepared for. What do you mean?" "Because of who I am," Emily asked, voice barely a whisper. Daniel stepped inside the room and closed the door gently behind him. "As Arthur's attorney, I handled his final estate documents, his medical care, his personal requests." He paused, eyes softening. "And his last search." Emily frowned. "Search?" "Yes," Daniel said. "Arthur spent years looking for someone. Not for money, not for heirs to his estate, but for family." Emily's breath caught. Family, but he had none left. His children died decades ago. Daniel's jaw tightened. Not all of them. Silence. Cold. Sharp. Emily blinked. I don't understand." Daniel walked to the bookshelf and pulled down a thin folder, its edges worn. He handed it to her. Emily opened it slowly. Inside was a birth certificate, her birth certificate. Her name, her date of birth. But the father's name. Michael Bennett. Emily felt the floor tilt beneath her. "No," she whispered. "That's impossible. My father was—" Daniel shook his head gently. Your mother remarried when you were 2. The man who raised you was your stepfather. She changed your name to protect you from the Bennett scandal." Emily staggered back, her pulse hammered, her stomach twisted. "My mother never told me," she murmured. Daniel spoke softly, carefully. "Arthur discovered you existed only a few months ago. Your biological father, Arthur's son, left the family during the bankruptcy. He never told his parents about you. And after his death, Arthur believed he had lost everything." Emily's eyes filled. "So I'm his granddaughter." Daniel nodded. Emily pressed a shaking hand to her mouth. The orchard, the photographs, the letter, all of it suddenly felt different. "He didn't know how to approach you," Daniel continued. "He didn't want to disrupt your life or bring you into the Bennett legacy of pain. But when you showed him kindness last night, he realized something." Emily swallowed. "What?" "That fate had brought you back to him, without him even asking." Her knees threatened to give out. She grabbed the edge of the desk. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why didn't he tell me at the diner?" Daniel lowered his gaze. "Because he wanted to be sure you were ready to hear it. He wanted to give you the orchard first, not as an inheritance, but as a gift, a way to say, 'I'm sorry for all the years I didn't get to be your grandfather.'" A sob escaped her. Daniel stepped forward, his voice softer than ever. "Emily, he loved you long before he ever met you." The room blurred behind her tears. She clutched the letter to her chest, the one that suddenly meant far more than she ever understood. Her grandfather, the lonely man in the diner, the one she saved, and the one who, without knowing, had saved her too. The air felt heavier now. Emily stood in the study, her breathing shallow, the truth still settling inside her like dust finally falling after a storm. Arthur Bennett wasn't just a stranger she'd helped. He was her grandfather, her blood, her family. She glanced around the room again, as if seeing it for the first time. The books weren't just books. The photographs weren't just memories. The desk wasn't just furniture. Everything here belonged to her life, a life she never knew existed. Daniel placed a gentle hand on the back of a chair. "There's more you need to see," he said quietly, "but I want you to find it the way Arthur intended." Emily wiped her eyes. "How? Where do I start?" Daniel nodded toward the staircase. "Your grandfather left a room untouched. He asked me never to enter it, said it was meant for you." Emily felt a shiver run up her spine. She took one uncertain step toward the hallway, then another. Daniel followed behind her, silent, respectful, giving her space. At the top of the stairs only one door stood closed. A thin line of afternoon light spilled from beneath it. Emily turned the knob. It opened with a soft click. The room beyond was small, quieter than the rest of the house, cleaner, almost frozen in time. The wallpaper had faded to soft yellows, and a rocking chair sat beside a window overlooking the orchard. But what made Emily gasp were the objects neatly arranged on a shelf. Baby shoes, a tiny knitted blanket, a framed hospital bracelet, a faded photograph of a woman holding a newborn. Emily stepped closer, hands shaking. The bracelet had her name on it, her real name. "Arthur kept this?" she whispered. Daniel nodded. "Your father left these with him before he disappeared. Arthur kept them safe, every single day." Emily picked up the blanket, soft, worn, smelling faintly of cedar and something familiar. Tears fell silently onto the fabric. "He saved everything," she whispered. "Everything he had of me." Her gaze drifted to the rocking chair. A letter sat on the seat, sealed in an envelope. She recognized Arthur's handwriting immediately. She sank into the chair, hands trembling as she opened it. "Emily, if you're reading this, It means you opened the door I could never bring myself to touch again. It was your nursery. Your father prepared this room the week you were born. After he left and after the fire, I couldn't step inside. But I couldn't bring myself to empty it either. I kept it for you. I kept all of it for you. In my heart, you were always alive, even when life took everything else from me. Emily pressed the letter to her lips, a sob breaking free. Daniel waited quietly in the doorway. She turned to him, voice trembling. He never stopped loving us, even after all those years alone. Daniel nodded. Some hearts don't forget their family, even when time tries to erase it. Emily stood, looking around the room, hers once and forever, and for the first time in her life, she felt claimed, wanted, remembered, not by chance, by blood. Emily stayed in the doorway of the nursery long after Daniel stepped away. The light from the small window painted the room in soft gold, casting shadows that felt warm instead of heavy. For the first time since entering the orchard, she felt connected to something larger than her own life. A story that began before her, a history she was finally meeting face to face. She folded the tiny blanket gently, as if touching her own infancy, and placed it back on the shelf. When she stepped into the hallway, Daniel was waiting, hands clasped, expression unreadable, but kind. "There's someone else who asked to see you," he said softly. Emily frowned. "Someone else? Who even knows I'm here?" Daniel hesitated, choosing his words. "A woman. She was very close to Arthur. She helped him through his darkest years." Emily felt a twist of emotion. "Is she family?" Daniel shook his head. "No, but she is someone who cares deeply about what happens to you now." Before Emily could respond, footsteps echoed from downstairs, slow but steady, like someone carrying memories with each step. Emily and Daniel descended the staircase together. Waiting in the living room was a woman in her late 70s, thin and elegant, with silver hair pinned neatly and a cane propped beside her. Her eyes, soft blue, gentle, knowing, lifted toward Emily. "You look just like your grandmother," the woman whispered. Emily froze. Daniel stepped forward. "Emily, this is Margaret Hale. She was Arthur's nearest friend, his support, and the keeper of many truths he couldn't bear to face alone." Margaret extended a trembling hand. Emily stepped closer, heart pounding, and took it. "My dear," Margaret said, voice rich with history, "I knew you the day you were born." Emily's breath hitched. "You knew my father?" Margaret nodded, eyes misting. "He was a wonderful man. Flawed, like all of us, but full of love. He adored you. He adored your mother too." Emily swallowed hard. "Why did he leave us?" Margaret's eyes fell to her lap. "Because he was ashamed. He lost the family fortune, made poor business decisions, borrowed from dangerous people. He thought leaving would protect you and your mother." A tear slipped down her cheek. "He thought he was the problem." Emily felt something in her chest crack quietly. Daniel added, "Arthur tried to rebuild things, but he was grieving too. Not just for his son, for the granddaughter he thought he would never meet." Margaret squeezed Emily's hand with surprising strength. "Your kindness saved him, child. You saved a man who had lost every reason to live." Emily felt tears blur her vision. A stranger, her grandfather, a lifetime of secrets she never asked for. Margaret touched Emily's cheek gently. "He left you this home so you would never feel abandoned the way he did. He wanted you to have a place where your heart could rest." Emily's voice broke. "But I didn't even know him." Margaret smiled through her tears. "No, but he knew you. And he loved you anyway." Emily stood in the living room, surrounded by people who suddenly knew more about her past than she ever had. Her pulse throbbed in her ears. Her throat tightened. Margaret remained seated on the old sofa, hands wrapped delicately around her cane. Daniel lingered nearby, giving Emily space but watching her with quiet concern. The late afternoon sun poured through the windows, bathing the dust in a warm glow that felt almost sacred. It was then that Margaret lifted a small wooden box from her bag, carved old and worn around the edges. "Arthur left this for you," she said, voice trembling with age and emotion. "He wanted you to have it when you were ready." Emily hesitated. "I'm not sure I'm ready for anything right now." Margaret smiled softly. "Then it's the perfect moment." Daniel stepped forward. "We'll give you privacy if you want." "No," Emily said quickly. "Stay, both of you. I don't want to open any more doors alone." Margaret nodded with understanding. Emily sat beside her and slowly lifted the lid of the wooden box. Inside were 3 items. The first was a folded newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. She unfolded it and saw a headline: "Local family loses everything in devastating fire." Her breath caught. The Bennett orchard, her father's home. Margaret rested a hand on her arm. That article broke Arthur more than anything else. Not the money, not the orchard. The fear that you and your mother would never forgive him. Emily swallowed hard, blinking away tears. The second item was a small velvet pouch. She opened it and gasped. Inside lay a delicate silver necklace, tarnished but beautiful, with a tiny apple-shaped charm. "That was your grandmother's," Margaret whispered. "Arthur wanted to give it to you the day you were born. He kept it safe all these years." Emily traced the apple charm with her thumb, a symbol of the orchard, of her family, of everything Arthur had lost, and somehow regained through her. The third item was a sealed letter, her name written on it again. Shaky penmanship, raw emotion. Her heart pounded as she opened it. "My dearest Emily, if you are reading this, then life has brought you back to where you belong. I gave you this orchard not as a burden, but as a beginning, a place to heal, a place to rest, a place to call home. I spent many years in the dark. You gave me one moment of light, and sometimes one moment is enough to save a life. If you choose to stay, this place will become yours in every way. If you choose to leave, know this: you still gave me my final piece. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for seeing me. With all the love a grandfather can hold, Arthur Bennett." The letter slipped from Emily's fingers as tears fell freely. Margaret pulled her gently into her arms. Daniel placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Emily closed her eyes, heart trembling with a truth she could no longer avoid. She hadn't just inherited land. She had inherited a legacy and a man's final hope. The orchard was quiet that evening, the kind of quiet that felt alive, as if the land itself were listening. Emily stepped outside the farmhouse with Arthur's final letter pressed to her chest. The air smelled of earth, old apples, and a sweetness she couldn't name. Margaret and Daniel waited on the porch, giving her space but watching her with the soft worry of people who cared. Emily walked down the steps slowly, her boots crunching over leaves. She stopped beneath the single surviving apple tree, its branches twisted but reaching, stubbornly alive. The sun dipped low behind the hills. The orchard glowed like gold. A place abandoned by the world, but waiting for her. She touched the trunk gently, her voice barely a whisper. "Grandpa, I'm here." A breeze drifted through the branches, rustling the leaves like a sigh. She closed her eyes and let the moment settle into her bones. The truth, the grief, the gratitude, the connection she never knew she needed. Footsteps approached. Emily turned to see Margaret standing beside her, cane gently sinking into the soil. "He wanted to fix everything," Margaret said quietly, "but he didn't know how. Losing your father broke him. Losing your grandmother shattered him. Losing the orchard nearly killed him." Emily swallowed. "He thought I wouldn't want him." Margaret smiled gently. He thought he didn't deserve you. That hit deeper than Emily expected. She looked out over the sea of trees, some leaning, some bare, some still stubbornly green. This place, it feels heavy, but safe. Because it's yours, Margaret said. It always was. He just didn't know how to give it to you until now. Daniel joined them, hands in his pockets. The legal process is already in motion. Ownership transfers to you fully within a week, if you want it. Emily turned to him. If I want it? He nodded. You don't have to stay. You can sell it. Leave it. Walk away. Arthur never wanted to trap you with legacy. He wanted to give you a choice. Emily breathed slowly, deeply, for the first time in years. This is the first thing in my life that feels like mine, she whispered. Not a job, not a bill, not something borrowed. She looked up at the farmhouse, cracked paint, crooked porch, broken shutters, just home. Tears warmed her eyes. She nodded softly to herself. I'm staying. Margaret reached for her hand, squeezing gently. He would be so proud. Emily exhaled as if letting go of a lifetime of uncertainty. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She wasn't lost. She wasn't forgotten. She was Emily Bennett, granddaughter, heir, caretaker of a story that had found its way back to her. She stepped toward the house, her house, carrying the letter close, the orchard glowing behind her, and somewhere in the soft rustle of the apple trees, she felt her grandfather's peace. Sometimes the smallest kindness, a meal, a smile, a hand on trembling fingers, becomes the miracle someone else was waiting for. Life has a quiet way of returning the love we give, often in forms we never expect. Because the world remembers kindness, even when people forget themselves.